Yeah, sorry, 1 second. Um, okay, guys, welcome to the session on stacks and queues. Okay, so let's first see what we're going to learn in today's session. We'll be starting off with the definition of data structure. Okay, since it's our first official session on data structure, we'll know what data structure is. We'll see what stacks are, and then some basic operations on stacks, and then standard problems on stacks. Also, we'll try to include intuitions wherever we can. Okay, we'll try to understand how and why we should be using stacks, how and why we should be using queues in this particular scenario. Okay. And similarly, there'll be the third one will be queues, operations on queues, standard problems, along with intuitions on why should we be using queues. Okay, so that is going to be the outline of the session. With that being said, we'll jump into the first part of the session. We'll see what data structure is. Okay, just the definition. So as the name suggests, data structure is just a structured way of arranging some data. Okay, it's just a structured way of arranging some data. So now why do we want it to be structured? Why structured? Okay, because it is effective to use. You can use it effectively, right? So yeah, an example of the data structure would be an array. You all might have known what an array is. An array is simply collection of homogeneous elements in continuous memory locations. Okay, so what is the way in which we have what is the in way what is the way in which we have stored the elements? We have stored the elements in continuous memory locations, right? Continuous memory locations, so that we can use it effectively, right? And it is easier to access. You all know that we can access any element in O of one time. Okay, so another example for data structure will be linked list. Linked list. Okay, so there'll be a node which consists of data and then a pointer. This pointer will point to the next node. Okay, this pointer will point to the next node, and then the next node there'll be some data too, and then there'll be another pointer that points to the next node, so on and so forth. So this is how the data is being organized in the data in the linked list. Okay, now we'll see what is a stack. Okay, stack. A stack is also a data structure, but typically it is a last in first out data structure. We call it last in first out or a first in last out data structure. Okay. Now, what does these two terms mean? Consider that you have a stack. Okay, let me make up some space. Consider you have a stack. Okay, and then there are some elements in it. Now, if you would like to store some more elements into the stack, we'll discuss the operations by which we can store the elements later, but let's just see what first in last out means. So as you can see, the first element that I want to store into the stack is 3. So if I insert this into the stack, it will only be inserted at the topmost location. So so 3 will be inserted right here. Now I thought that the stack is full, and I want to remove an element. Okay, only 3 can be removed first because the element in the top will only be accessible inside the stack. Okay. As you can see, the 3 has been inserted last. 3 has been inserted last, but came out first. Okay, hence the word last in first out. So stack is a last in first out data structure in which the insertion and deletion occurs at the same end. As you can see, insertion and deletion occurs in the same end, the top end. Okay, so that is all about the stack definition. Now let's see the operations in the stack, operations that can be performed on the stack. Okay, two operations have been demonstrated in the definition itself. One operation is push. Push is similar to insert, but the insertion is always happening on the top end, at the top end. So push is similar to inserting at the top end. Okay. It is actually a member function inside the stack class. It doesn't return any value. So whenever you say the syntax is something like stack object name, okay, stack object dot push, and then the element that you want to insert into the stack. Okay, so this is the common syntax in C++. This is the syntax for push in the C++. Mind you that it is not returning any value. And the next thing is deletion. Deletion also occurs at the topmost end of the stack. Also, let's say that we have a stack like this, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the deletion is happening at the topmost end. So 3 will get deleted if at all I invoke this function. If at all I invoke this function using an object named st, where st is an object of stack class, let's say, then 3 gets popped out. So one thing that people confuse most often here is that the thing that pop returns a value, but instead pop doesn't return a value, it deletes a value. Okay, it deletes the reference to this element inside the stack, so it doesn't return any value. Okay. And then we have empty, a member function called empty. As the name suggests, it is pretty obvious. Like it actually returns a Boolean value. A Boolean value is essentially a true or false. Okay, it returns true when the stack is empty, else it will be returning false. And then there is size. Size is the number of elements present. It returns the number of elements present inside the stack. Number of elements in stack. Okay, number of elements inside the stack is returned. And there is something called swap. Okay, let's say that you have two stacks. Let me divide the screen. Let's say you have two stacks. One stack consisting of first 3 even numbers and the other consisting of first 3 odd numbers. Okay, let's call the stack E. Let's call the stack O. Okay. Now what I want is I want to exchange the contents of E and O. So what I'll be doing is I'll be invoking this member function called swap with the syntax E dot swap. Oh, okay. What happens is that the contents in the O will be swapped to, so that is swap, and then the last operation we'll be discussing will be top. Okay. Top returns a reference. It returns a reference. Okay. It returns a reference. Reference is just like an alias. Okay. So it returns a reference to the topmost element present inside the stack. Okay, let's say the stack consists of 1, 2, then it will be returning a reference to this element over here. So that's all about the operations on stack. We'll see some standard problems in the stack. Okay. The first problem we'll be dealing with is called balanced brackets. So the problem is as follows. You'll be given a sequence of brackets. What I mean by brackets is the flower brace, square bracket, and then general parenthesis we talk about. Okay. So there'll be a sequence consisting of these characters. Now what you have to check is if the sequence is balanced or not. Okay. You have to check if the sequence is balanced or not. A sequence is said to be balanced. A sequence is said to be balanced. Okay, so 1 second. A sequence is said to be balanced if the bracket that has been opened first, okay, closes last. And then let's say that we have a bracket that has been opened second, so it should be closing second to last. Okay, similarly, let's say I have opened a bracket here. It should be closed here. So this is a sequence that is balanced. Okay. But in our input, we might be given multiple sequences. What I mean by multiple sequences is that this is one balanced sequence, this is other balanced sequence, or this is the third balanced part. Okay. Since this is balanced, this is balanced, this is balanced, the whole this whole thing is said to be balanced. Okay. And some more examples of uh, a non-balanced sequence would be this. Okay. So as you can see, we are missing this parenthesis over here, so it is not balanced. Right? And one more thing is that this. So nothing is being missed here, but the thing is the order in which the opening and the closing brackets are present in the sequence is wrong. So the correct order might have been this, okay, or this. Okay, but the sequence is wrong. So how are we going to use stack in this question? As already mentioned earlier, okay, the question is it is said to be balanced. It is said to be balanced if the bracket that opens up first ends up last. So it is like last in, first out, right? So that is the basic intuition that you have to notice here. So the bracket that is being pushed into the stack first, okay, that has to be closed last, right? So hence we'll be using stack to tackle this question, right? So that is the basic intuition. Now let's try to trace what will be happening with the help of an example. Let's say that I have a sequence like this. Okay, and then I have a stack. Yeah. So initially the sequence is empty. Sorry, initially the stack is empty. Okay, how do we know if the stack is empty or not? We use the empty function. So if it returns true, then the stack is empty. Initially the stack is empty. So what we can do is we can push the first element. We can push the first element. Okay, what does this pushing mean? This pushing does mean that in the sequence we have uh, a part where we have a sequence that has started with this bracket. Okay, that is what pushing it to the stack here means. Okay, and then we have the square bracket which will be pushed into the stack, indicating that it is a start of another sequence. So we'll also be having this parenthesis indicating that it is the start of this sequence. So as you can see, this is the last sequence, this is second to last, and this is the first sequence. So the sequence that has to end first should be this one over here, right? Only then it is said to be balanced. As you can see in the next part of input, we can clearly see that it is being closed. So what can we say that this sequence right here, the sequence with this parenthesis right here, is balanced. So we no longer need it. We no longer need it in the stack. What can we do? We can just pop it out, right? Since we no longer need it. So we'll be doing the same. We'll just pop out this. Okay, suggesting that this sequence right here, this is balanced. Now coming to the next part. The next input right here will be our close bracket, right? This one right here. So if you see the topmost element present inside the stack, the closed bracket and the open bracket correspond to each other. Okay, which means that the sequence that is starting with the square bracket is also balanced. So we just push it out of the stack. Right, we just push it out of the stack. And finally, we have curly brace. Okay, the flower brace corresponds to and then we will be pushing this out into the stack. Okay. So we're done traversing the array. We're done traversing the array, or we're done traversing the string input that we are given. And at the end of the for loop, we see that the stack is empty. Okay, we see that the stack is empty. What does this mean? This means that the sequence is balanced. Sequence is balanced, or there are no unbalanced components inside the sequence. Okay. Hence, we'll return true. We'll have a function. Okay, will return true if it is balanced, or false if it is not balanced. In this case, since the stack is empty, we can return true. Okay, which means that the sequence previously shown is balanced. Let's take an example. Okay, let's just take the previous example. Okay, this time I'll not be keeping a flower brace, so that is, I'll not be closing this curly brace. Okay, so what happens is that this element right here will remain into the stack. So stack will not be empty after the traversal of array. So stack empty is false. Okay, which means the sequence is not balanced. So this is the basic algorithm. Now we'll quickly go through the code. Give me a minute. Okay, so this is the code corresponding to the problem that we have just discussed. As you can see, this is the sequence that we are given. Okay, so if at all it is balanced, then I'm printing yes, or else I'll be printing no. Let's see what this isPar does. Okay, see, this is the function isPar. It returns a Boolean value. We have string as a parameter. We have the stack. We have our stack. Okay, and we're iterating through the array right here. We're iterating through the sequence. Okay. So if at all, x of I, the character at I, is an opening bracket. Okay, suggesting the start of a sequence, right? If at all there is an opening bracket, that means it is a start of some start of a sequence. So then we'll be pushing it into the stack. Or else, let's say, okay, I forgot something. Let's say if the stack is empty, and then the first element that I've encountered is a closing bracket. Okay, the first element that I've encountered is a closing bracket. This cannot be true, because since the stack is empty, everything up to that point is balanced, right? So there is no start of sequence, but we've encountered the end already without the start, which means that this sequence is not going to be balanced. That is what is happening right here. So if at all I have encountered a closing bracket and the stack is empty, or if the top bracket, like if the topmost element present inside the stack doesn't correspond to this. Okay, let's say that the topmost element is something like this, or the topmost element is a square bracket. Okay, topmost element is a square bracket, but it is not an open bracket. So we'll be returning false. The same goes with this. Or else if the brackets correspond to each other, like this or this, so what can we say about that? It means that we no longer need this element. We no longer need a topmost element inside the stack. So we'll be popping this out. So that is what is done here. So we'll be iterating all through the length of the array, and whenever we reach the end of the array, if the stack is empty, then we'll be returning true, or else we'll be returning false. So that is the code. Let's see if it will work for this code. For this input, you can see this is the starting of a sequence, but there is no end. Okay, this is the starting of another sequence. This one is the starting of another sequence. It has ended right here. Let me zoom in a little. Okay, so this is the starting of the third sequence, which has been ended right here. And then this is a whole different sequence which has started and ended correctly. So this is not a balanced sequence. Because this did not end. The character that I'm highlighting, this This one did not end. So I should be getting no as my answer. Let's see if that will work. I'll compile it. Okay, so as you can see, the answer to the question is correct. It is not a balanced sequence. Okay, so yeah, that will be our first problem. That will be our first problem. Mm, let's see another problem using stack. This one is going to be interesting, and it is one of the most important applications that we're going to learn today. It is called as nearest greater or nearest smaller. So there are typically four problems: nearest greater to right, nearest greater to left, nearest smaller to right, nearest smaller to left. Okay. We'll be discussing nearest greater to right, and you can try the remaining three problems in your free time. Let's see what actually is nearest greater to right. Okay. Abbreviated as NGR. You'll be given an array of elements. You'll be given an array. Let's say this is the array that we have right here. Okay. You need to find the nearest greater to an element. Okay. Let's say we have 5 over here. What is the element that is greater than 5 and that is closer to 5? It is 6, right? Okay, so the answer will also be maintaining an answer array, right? So the answer for 5 should be 6, and for 6 the answer is not 3 but it is 7. Okay, for 3 the answer is its immediate element 7. And then for 7, as you can see, we do not have any elements to the right of the 7 which are greater than 7, right? So we'll be adding -1. Okay. To 3, as you can see, 6 is to 3, 6 is the nearest greater to right. Okay. And then to 6, we have no elements to the 6, so we'll be returning -1. Okay. So this should be our answer today. Now let's see how can we come up with the answer, and also we'll see how can we use stack to get this. So usually the brute force approach would be to iterate over each and every element 10 times. Like for 5, you'll be starting here, you'll be iterating to the right until you find the element. For 6, you'll be starting and then you'll be iterating again. So that would be an O of n square approach, right? So you need to iterate the array as many as n times almost in the worst case. But using stack, we can do that in O of n. We can just iterate the array once. So let's see. Let me 3, 7, 3, 6. Now the basic intuition of this question is that I do not want you to see these elements as elements. Okay. Instead, let's just consider them as height of buildings. Okay. So this will be my 5. This will be 6. So what I mean 6 is this is a building of height 6. And this is 3. This is going to be 7. This is going to be 3 again. Then this is going to be 6. 5, 6, 3, 7, 3, 6. Right? So consider you're standing on the top of the building 5. Okay, you're standing on the top of the building 5. What is the first building that you see? The first building that you see will be 6. That is the nearest greater element to 5, right? So consider yourself being on the top roof of a building, and then the first building that you see will be your answer. Similarly, if you stand on 6, the first building that you see will be 7. Similarly, if you stand on 3, the first building that you mind you, you're looking to the right. You're looking to your right. Okay. So it is called nearest greater to right. So you'll be finding the nearest greater element which is to the right of the current element. Okay. And then 7, you won't be seeing anything. You won't be seeing any building because this is the maximum height. Okay. So for 3, you'll be seeing 6, right? And then for 6, you won't be seeing anything. This is just void. Nothing else is here. So this intuition works here. So we'll see how can we implement this using a stack. Okay, so I'll take the array I'll have 5, 6, 3, 7, 3, 6, and then there is our stack. Initially the stack is empty. Okay, so if the stack is empty, I'll be pushing the first element. Okay. If the stack is empty, I'll be pushing the first element. Okay. And now we'll, oh sorry, I forgot. Okay, so yeah, here we'll be using stack because you all know that the stack is a great resource for temporary memory, right? So here we should be using stack because there is data dependency. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? That is like if you want to find the nearest greater element to 5, you should know what is the data that you're having which is right to 5, right? So that is why the brute force approach is like that. You start with 5, you iterate all through the array, all the elements of the array which are to the right of the stack. So instead what we can do is, okay, we can start at the right end because this doesn't need any data. Do we need any data uh, uh, to find the nearest greater element to 6? No, because there are actually no elements present on the right side of the 6. The answer would obviously be -1. But when you come to 3, you already have you already know the information of about 6, right? Because you'll be storing it into the stack. You'll be storing 6 into the stack. So you know what is to the right of the 3 and what can be the answer. That is why we'll be iterating from the back. So we'll start our iteration from the back. We'll start our iteration from the back. I will also maintain our answer array. We'll also maintain our answer array. Consider this as our answer array. So initially, we don't need any other condition to put -1 in the answer place of 6 because there are no elements to the right. And then can we actually say that the elements that come to the that occur in the left side of the 6 are all greater than 6? No, right? 6 can be an answer. Okay, so 6 can be greater to some other element which is present to the left of 6. So we need to store this. We need to store 6 because 6 can be an answer. So we'll be pushing it into the stack, right? And then we come to 3. What is the nearest greater to what is the nearest greater element which is present to the right of 3? So that is obviously 6. We'll say 6. Again, the same question. Can we say that? Can we say that the elements to the left of 3, are all greater than 3? No, in this case, yeah, but we did not iterate the array yet, so we don't know what kind of elements are there before 3. So we do not know that. Hence, we'll be storing it in our temporary data structure, temporary memory. So let's just say we'll be pushing it into the stack. Okay. Now we have 7. Okay, now we have 7. Here I want. Let me make up some space. Okay. Here we have 7, right? So now the question is, we have 3 on the top of the stack. Okay, when can 3 never be an answer? The question is, when can 3 never be an answer? 3 can never be an answer when it is shadowed by some other building. Okay, as I told you, you should be imagining this as some heights of some buildings. Okay, this is 7 right here, and let's say we have 3 here. Okay, we have 6 right here. As you can see, for a guy who is standing to the left of 7 and seeing like this, okay, either he can see 7 or he doesn't see anything at all. Okay, if he stands on a building of height 8, he doesn't see at all. Or if he stands on a building that is whose height is less than 7, he sees 7. But 3 and 6 can never be seen, meaning they're shadowed. Okay, 3 and 7 are shadowed. So since 3 and 7 are shadowed, 3 and 6 are shadowed, 3 and 6 can never be the answer. Okay, since 3 and 6 can never be an answer, we no longer require the data 3 and 6. Since we no longer require the data, we'll just be pushing it out of the stack. Push it out of the stack. Sorry, pop it out of the stack. We don't need this. But the same question again: Can you be sure that the elements that come to the left of the 7 are all greater than 7? Meaning that 7 can never be answered. We cannot prove it, right? because we did not iterate the array, we don't know what kind of elements are there. So I'll be pushing 7 again. Similarly, the process goes on. The process goes on. For 3, there is 7, we'll push 3, right? And then for 6, we'll actually pop 3 because 3 will be overshadowed by 6. We no longer require 3, right? We no longer require 3, so we'll be popping 3, and then 7 will be its answer. So we'll push 6. Similarly, for 5, we have 6 as its answer. So this is our answer array. I hope you have got an idea of why are we using stacks in this case and why is it better than the brute force approach. Now let's just quickly dive into the code of this. Okay, so yeah, I forgot to tell you, all these codes are available to you on the website. You can check Geeks for codes. Geeks for Geeks. Not using any of my code so that you can easily access. So yeah, since these are already present on the web, you can easily access. This spelling is wrong. So let's start from the main. Okay, we have an array as input, and then we passed it to our function along with the size of the array. Along with the size of the array is and right here. Let's see what this function does. Okay. This function we also have a stack right here, and then we have our answer array. And then as you can see, we're starting to iterate from the last. I already told you why we are starting from the last, because we need data. Okay. We can pretty much say that the last element, the answer is always -1 for the last element, because we don't need any other data for it. So that we'll be iterating from the last. And then we'll check if the stack is empty. If the stack is empty, we'll be pushing it. If it is not empty. Okay, so where is it? Okay, we'll be pushing ARR of 5 if the stack is empty. Okay. But if it is not empty, and then the topmost element present inside the stack is less than or equal to the current element. Okay, which means the current element will be shadowing the next buildings, right? Will be shadowing the top building, or let's say will be shadowing the top element. Okay, so we no longer need top element. Since we no longer need top element, we'll be popping it out of the array. And then we'll see if the stack is empty. Okay, if the stack is empty, then the answer is -1, because every element is shadowed. Okay, only then the stack will be empty, right? Because we'll pop every element, so the answer will be -1. Okay, or else the answer will be the element which is present in this on the top of the stack. Okay. I've already told you we'll be pushing, because we don't know if the current element is the smallest from index of 0 to -1. So this is just like if I have 3 and 6 and 7. Let's say that the stack consists of 6 alone. Okay, our current element is 3. Although 3 is small, but we never know that there are no smaller elements to 3. There are all the elements to the left of the 3 are greater than 3. We cannot actually conclude that, or we cannot actually predict that. So we'll be pushing every element into the stack. Okay, we'll only be popping out if it is overshadowed by some building. In this case, it will be all 6 and 3 can be overshadowed by building 7. So only in this case we'll be popping them out. Okay. Finally, I'll be printing my answer array. So this is how it works. Let's see this. Yeah. So as you can see here, the array consists of 11, 13, 21, and 3. Okay. So the element which is to the right of 11 and greater than 11 is 13. So our answer for 11 should be 13. Similarly, answer for 13 should be 21. But since 21 is the largest element there is no other element to the right of 21 which is greater than 21, shall be returning -1. The same goes with 3. There are actually no elements to the right of 3, so we'll be returning -1. Let's see if the output is reflected. Yes. So that is all about not nearest greater right question. Sorry guys, I'm having some network problems. Give me a moment while I present it again. Okay. So, yeah. The next problem we are going to, which we're going to discuss right now um, is actually a pretty interesting problem. Okay. So the problem statement is like this: there is a city. Let's say that there is a city, and it had been raining in the city for a while, for a long time. So what happened was there is water accumulated in between the buildings. There is water accumulated in between the buildings. Now you're asked to find out the area. You're asked to find out the area. Okay, area of water that has been accumulated. Area of water that has been accumulated. Okay, area of water that has been accumulated. This is popularly called as rainwater trapping problem. Rainwater trapping. This can actually be done in multiple ways, and one of the optimal solutions to this is by using the stack. So we'll see how and why. Okay, so I'll take an example first. I have 5 as the height of building, 1 as the height of my second building, 4, and then 6, and then 6. So where will the rainwater be trapped for this kind of input? The rainwater will be trapped right here. Okay. And then the rainwater will be, I'll tell you why I'm coloring it with 2 different colors. So the rainwater will be trapped right here. Since we actually even this problem, if you do it in brute force, you're going to iterate the whole array again, so it'll at least take you 1 square. Okay, but using stacks, we'll try to iterate the array only once, so we'll just try it in no often time. So yeah, since we're iterating 1 by 1, okay, since we're iterating 1 by 1, let's say that we are at 4. Okay, we're currently at this element. Okay. All we know is all we know about is about this 5 and 4, about the statistics of 5 and 1 that we have already iterated, but we don't know about this element 6, right? So it is actually impossible to present this blue shaded area when you're currently here. Okay, when you're currently at 4, it is impossible to predict the area of this blue region. So we'll be predicting the area of this pink region first. Okay, and then when we come to 6, we'll get to know. When we come to 6, we know the information about 5, 1, and 4. We know how the buildings are, so we can predict this top area, right? So that is why I've shaded this in 2 colors. So this area will be found out first, and this second. Okay, so let's see an observation right here. Okay, so first question will be, when is the rainwater trapped? When is the water trapped? Okay. So the water is only trapped whenever you have whenever it is bounded, right? The water is only trapped whenever it is bounded. Okay, this can be either this scenario or this. Okay, in this case, the right side is lesser than the left side. In this, it's just the opposite. Okay, so only in these 2 cases Only in these two cases can the rainwater be trapped. Okay. So what is the observation right here? We're actually going from high to low and then to high again, right? Even in this case, we're going from high to low and then to high. So only in this case will the rainwater be trapped. How do we use push, pop, and empty? Okay, obviously, or let me just make it simple. How do we use stack? Okay, to check out this condition, high to low to high. Okay, so if this condition is satisfied, then there is a chance that rainwater will be trapped there, right? So how do we check that? Okay, so it's just by the proper use of push and pop. Okay, it's just by the proper use of push and pop. Okay. I'll push into the stack only when if the stack is empty. I'll push the element into the stack if the stack is empty, or if the topmost element present inside the stack is greater than if the topmost element present inside the stack is greater than the current element, the iterating element, which are iterating. Sorry, only in this case will be pushing into the stack. I'll tell you why. Let's also see when will we be popping. We'll only be popping if the stack is not empty, because it doesn't make sense to remove an element from empty stack. It will actually throw you some stack empty exception. Okay. So it is actually impossible. So only if the stack is not empty can we pop an element out of the stack. Okay. And then the second condition is that if the current element is greater than or equal to the current element is greater than or equal to the topmost element. Okay, if the current element is greater than or equal to the topmost element. So two conditions. First thing, when is it? When will the element be pushed? It will be pushed if the current element is less than topmost element. Okay. When will it be popped? It will be popped if the current element is greater than or equal to the top element. Right. So what can we say about the popped element? Okay. So since it is this way, so what the first thing is that only if the current element is less than the top element will it be pushed, right? So let's say that I have 3 right here. Okay. So if I have 2 and 4 as my inputs, 2 will be pushed into the stack because 3 is greater. 3 is greater than 2. Okay. What can we say is that 3 is actually larger than 2, right? So when we come to 4, okay, when we come to 4, 2 will be popped out. 2 will be popped out because 4 is greater than 2, right? So 2 will be popped out. Whenever there is a popping, whenever an element is popped out, we know that the element just below the popped element, that is the current top element. Okay, after this is popped, we know the current top element is greater than the popped element, right? And then the current element is also greater than the popped element. So didn't we reach a scenario where we have high, low, and high with either one of the two boundaries being top or current, and the lower will be the element that has just popped, right? So in this way, we're going to use stack to in this way we'll be using stack to calculate the area of the rainwater. I think you got a pretty good idea about why are we using stack in this situation and how can we use it to our advantage. With that being said, we'll take the test case. We have a building of height 5. We have a building of height 4. We have a building of height 1. We have a building of height 4. And finally a building of height 6. So initially the stack will be empty. As I've already told you, if the stack is empty, we'll be pushing the current element. Push the current element. Okay. And then we'll go to the next element, which will be 1. Okay. Since 1 is less than 5, we'll also push 1. Okay. We'll also push 1. Okay. and then there is 4. Okay. Whenever the current element is 4, the stack, the topmost element present inside the stack is less than 4, right? So this 1 should be popped out. Okay. So let me take, we have 5 here, we have 1 here, and we have 4. Okay. So if this wants to come out, this has to pop out, right? So whenever it is popped, okay, we can say that the rainwater can be collected from the, we have already proved this, okay, because we have reached the condition high, low, high. This low element is the element that is just popped. Okay, so I'll just draw it as buildings 1, 4, 5, 4, and 1. Okay, let's say this is 5, this is 1 and 4. Okay, as you can see, I'll use different color. As you can see, this is high and this is high. Okay, these two are actually the boundaries, and this is low, right? So what happened? High, low, and high. So there is chance of rainwater being collected, right? So that we have done using stack. Okay. Now the question is, what is the area of rainwater that is collected? This is simple math. Okay. The area of rainwater is this height over here. Okay. This height. Okay. This height multiplied by this distance over which the rainwater is collected. Okay. Actually the thing, we won't be pushing the direct elements into the stack. Okay. When I said that we'll be pushing 5, we'll actually be pushing the index of 5. In this case, the index of 5 is 0. Okay, so I'll be pushing 0. And then the index of 1 is 1. So I'll be pushing 1. Okay, now we have 4 right here. 4 as in index 4 as in index 2. Okay. 1 gets swapped out because 4 has to get in. Okay. And then we'll compare between 5 and 4. Okay. How much amount of rainwater is being accumulated is the question right now, right? So the height of the rainwater, let's say that if we do not have this level for a while, let's say that this is 0. Okay, this is just ground. Okay, let's say that this is just ground. So this will be 0. Okay, since it's just ground, the amount of rainwater that will be collected is equal to, okay, this is not clear. Let me make it high. So, okay. The amount of rainwater that will be collected is actually the minimum of these two heights, right? So the minimum of these two heights. Okay. Again, we'll just go into our container kind of diagram. So the minimum of these two heights will be the height of the rainwater that will be collected right here. Okay, but since we have another level here, so the diagram of the container is not exactly like this, but it is actually like this, right? So this is our 1. This is actually kind of obstructing our collection. So the rainwater will be trapped like this. So the formula to calculate the height will be minimum of current element, topmost element, minimum of the current element, which will be 4 in this case, and the topmost element, which will be 5 in this case, minus the element of the element that has been just, the height of the element that has been just popped, which will be 1. So in this case, the height of this water will be 3. So it is just 4 minus 1, that will be 3. Okay. And now the distance is just, as I've already told you, we'll just be pushing the indices, not the elements. So we'll have 0 right here. We'll have 2 as our current element and 1 is popped out. Okay, 2 is just ready to be entered. Okay, 2 as in this corresponds to building of height 4, and this corresponds to building of height 5. This to building of height 1. So the distance will be 2 minus 0 minus 1, which will be the current index minus the index of the topmost element present inside the stack minus 1. So in this case, the distance is just 1. 2 minus 0 minus 1, which will be 1. Right. So we know the distance over which the stack over which the water is accumulated, and we know the height of rainwater. So if you multiply these two, we got the area. Right. So in this way, we'll be calculating the area of the rainwater that will be accumulated. Okay. So that is just the first part of our question. Like we did not completely traverse the array. Okay, as I've already told you, this part is the first part we'll be calculating. Since we do not know the existence of, in this case, we do not know the existence of 6. Okay, but when the current element is 6, okay, we have already iterated along this array once, so we know the information about 5, 4, 5, and 1 and 4. So now the rainwater that will be collected will be this. I'll use a different color. So we'll calculate the rainwater that will be accumulated between these two buildings, with the upper bound being the upper bound being sorry the lower bound being 4, the lower bound being 4. Okay, and then two of its edges 5 and 6. So we have 5 right here. We have 1 which is actually removed from the stack. If you remember, it is actually popped out already. Okay. So we have 4 right here, and then there is 6. Okay, this 6 right here. Okay, so I'll be calculating the rainwater in this region, since we have already calculated the rainwater in this region in our first attempt. Okay, so it's just the same formula again. We have index 0, which corresponds to element 5. We have index 2, which corresponds to element 4. We have already popped 1, so we are not including that in the stack. Okay, we have already popped 1. And then 6 is ready to enter. When 6 is ready to enter, this element should be popped, right? When this element is popped, we know that there is a chance of rainwater being harvested, right? We have a chance of rainwater being harvested. So we'll again calculate the minimum height, the height of the rainwater. The height of the rainwater is simply minimum of the boundaries. What are the boundaries? 5 and 6 in this case, minus the boundary of just popped element, which will be 4. So the height of the rainwater will be 1. And then the distance will be, since the 4 is also the element 4 has just been popped, the topmost element will be 0, which corresponds to 5. Okay, 0 is the index of a building which has height 5. Okay, and then 6, as in this is 2. Okay, the index of sorry, it's not 2, it's actually 3. Okay, so the index of 6 is 3. Now the distance is simply 3 minus 0 minus 1, which will be 2. So we know the distance is 2. We know the height is 1. We'll know the area is 2 cross 1, which will be 2. Okay, that is our part 2. Let me just redraw the diagram. This one, this is 4, and then this is 6. Okay, this will be 6, this will be 4, this. Oh. Sorry, yeah, this will be 5, this will be 1, this will be 4. So this is the part that we have calculated first. Okay, it turns out that this area is 3, and then this part that we have just calculated, this area is 2. So our answer should be 5. Okay, we'll see how can we code this. How we can code this. So yeah, as you can see, this is the output, the input that we are given. We're actually passing it through the max water function. This max water, we have a stack, and we have the answer. This answer is essentially the area of rainwater that has been harvested or accumulated. As you can see, only if the stack is not empty, okay, and the height of and the current height. This is the current height. Okay, height of A is the current height. Only if the current height is greater than the height at the top of the element, will the element be popped, right? The element is only popped. Okay, as I've already told you, the pop doesn't return anything. Pop function doesn't return anything. So if you want to store the popped element just before it getting deleted, we have to kind of use the st.top. So we have to use st.top. We have to use st.top and then store the element, and then pop it. So yeah, and whenever the element is popped, if the array is empty, okay, sorry, if the stack is empty, empty after popping is done. Initially, it cannot be empty because we are checking this condition. Only if it is not empty, it'll get into the loop. So only if the stack is empty, if the stack is empty, which means that remember that container diagram that we have, right? So the container, it is only called container if it has two boundaries, right? It should be having two boundaries. If the stack is empty, which means that we have found our right boundary. We have found our right boundary, which is the current element. Okay, but since the stack is empty, there is no top. Okay, since the stack is empty, since stack is empty, there is no top, right? There is no top element. Okay, which means there is no left boundary. Okay, imagine a container without the left edge and just having the right edge. The water will flow off, right? It wouldn't be harvested. So in that case, will break because we do not the rainwater will not be harvested. Okay, else we'll just calculate the distance as mentioned in the example. Yeah, we'll calculate the minimum height, that is the height of the rainwater, and then this is the distance over which the rainwater will get accumulated. That is between distance between uh, st dot top and current. Okay, st dot top and current. Okay, so the answer is simply distance multiplied by distance multiplied by the minimum height, and then we'll just be pushing it into the into the stack. Okay, we'll be pushing our current element. We'll be pushing our current element into the stack. Okay, so why are we pushing it without checking any conditions? Implicitly, the conditions are checked here. If you remember, I have told you you should only be pushing. You should only be pushing if the topmost element present inside the stack is actually greater than the current element. Okay, and when will this while loop get terminated? Of course, if the stack is empty, then it will get terminated. Or if the current element is less than the height of is less than or equal to the height of top. Okay, only in this case we'll be pushing, right? So these conditions are implicitly checked in the while loop, and we'll just be pushing it element. Okay, after calculating, we'll just return the area. So in our case, the answer should be 5. Let's see if it matches. So yeah, in this case, it is just the example that we have taken. We got the answer as 5. That is 3 between these buildings and 2 between these buildings. Right? So this is the height of the rainwater that will be harvested between 5, 1 and 4. And then this is the distance over which the rainwater will be harvested. Same in this case. So if we add 3 and 2, that should be 5. And so is our answer. Oh, sorry. This from the previous. Again, so is our answer. And to this question as well. Right? Okay. So sorry guys, give me a minute, I'll present again. Okay, so yeah, that sums up stacks. I mean, that actually doesn't sum up stacks, but those are the basics of stacks. If you want, you can refer Geeks for Geeks, or there are some references. You can go and learn more about stacks. So these are the basic and some of the standard problems in stack. Okay, as you might have already figured that the stacks and queues this session is pretty intuitive. We're trying our best to cover the intuition part also. Okay, now our next data structure is queue. The next data structure is queue. You can say that it's the stack inverse. Okay, it doesn't make okay. It is actually not in righteous terms, but it's a stack inverse. Why is it stack inverse? Because it is first in, first out. Okay, if you remember, stack is last in, first out. sorry, first in last out, or just the same thing, last in first out. Okay. It is either first, but Q is first in first out or last in last out, or last in last out. Now, what does that mean? Okay, let's say we have the same 3 and 4 and we need to insert it. The insertion happens at this end, and okay, the insertion happens at this end. But if you want to delete an element, it gets out from backend. So this is one more difference between the stack and queue. Difference between stack and queue is in stack, insertion and deletion happens at the same end, okay, which we have named top, right? But in queue, the insertion happens at back end, and deletion happens at front end. I'll tell you what this front end and back end means. Okay, so also if you look at the way I'm drawing queue, okay, I've drawn stack like this, okay, which means that this is blocked, right? So we cannot we cannot change the stack at this end. We can only change at the top end. Okay? But here we can change from both the ends. Okay, so yeah, that okay. Since we can change from both the ends, what are the possibilities that we can do? Okay? We know that the basic operations are just insertions and deletions, right? The basic operations are just insertions and deletions. Okay, and then we can perform operations on both ends. Does it mean we'll be performing both insertion and deletion on both ends, or insertion on one end and deletion on one end? Okay, so if we perform insertion and deletion on both the ends, it's just array. Okay, if we perform insertion and deletion on both ends, it's not actually array, but we do not actually do this. Okay, insertion and deletion, insertion occurs at one end and deletion occurs at the other. So why am I representing Q like this? As I've already told you, because you can perform, it is open to operations from both sides. Okay. So the example of Q will be just like queue of people. Okay, a queue of people in front of some counter or something. In front of counter. Okay. It's just the classic example of queue. And then for stacks, I would say the classic example is just stack of chairs. Stack of chairs. Although stack of plates is the example that people give often. Okay, the stack of plates should be clamped to some rod or something so that this kind of movement is not free. So I'd say stack of chairs, because if you want the third chair, you should be removing the first chair and second chair. There is no way out. There is no else way out. So stack of chairs would be the perfect examples to stack. Okay. With that being said, we'll see the operations on queue. The operations on queue are pretty much same as the operations in stack. Push, which will be pushing, inserting at the front. Okay, I forgot to tell you. What before that, I'll tell you something. So this is actually called the front end. Okay, and this is called the back end. Okay, insertion always happens at the back end. Okay, and then deletion always happens at the front end. So if you are pushing something into the queue, it will always be pushed at the back end, right? So if you're popping an element out of the queue, it will be front end. Okay, it will be front end. And then there is this empty function. The same thing, returns a boolean, true and false. Stack, if the queue is empty, then it will return true, or else it will return false. Okay, size, which will return the size of the queue. And then swap. The swap, as I've already mentioned with that even odd stack example, it just changes the contents of one queue to other. It will transfer the content. Okay, all of these are member functions. All of these are member functions inside the queue. And then, okay, so all of those are similar to those that we have seen in stacks. Okay, but what about top? Okay, top is the only end in the queue in the stack. Okay, but inside the queue we have front end and back end. So there will be two member functions, front and back. The front returns a reference to the first element inside the queue, and the back returns a reference to the last element inside the queue. Right. So this is all about the operations. We'll see a standard problem. The standard problem 1 sp1. Okay. Uh, this is one. This is another classic. Okay, we'll try to implement stack using queues. Okay, there are actually versions of these. Okay, there is also one more thing: queues using stack. This will not be dealt in the session because these two are pretty similar. There are some minor changes, so you can practice them out if you want. Okay, and also in the stack using queue, there are two ways of doing this. One is making an queue, which is same as push, costly. Okay, and the other is making dequeue costly. Okay, what does this costly mean? I'll tell you. I'll tell that in a while. So stack, you should be implementing stack using queue, right? So first of all, if you want to do something with the other, you should be knowing the similarities and the differences. That is the basic point. Should be knowing the similarities and the differences. So what are what is the difference between what are the similarities between stack and queue? Okay, so if you have noticed already, you might have noticed already. Okay, insertion always appends a value to existing queue or stack. If it's okay, insertion always appends, right? If you want to insert 4, I'll be inserting it on the back when it comes to queue, and at the top when it comes to stack. It's just appending, right? So this is a similarity. Okay, but what is the difference? What is the major difference is that the deletion happens at the front end for queue and at the back end for stack. Okay, so since they are similar in one way, they are similar in pushing or insertion. Okay, I can pretty much say that stack dot push, whatever function is done by stack dot push is done by queue dot push. Right, whatever function is done by stack dot push will be done by queue dot push, which means that if I just say queue dot push, it just means stack dot push. I don't need to do any kind of operations and else. So this is not costly. This is not costly, right? Okay, but when it comes to pop, okay, it's just different, right? 1, 2, 3. If this is a stack, you want 3 out by using the pop, but since this is a queue, 1 will be coming out. So what can we do? We can actually transfer 2 and 3 into another queue. We can transfer these 2 and 3 another queue into yeah, sorry. Will be we need 3 out, right? So we'll be transferring 1 and 2 into another queue. We'll be transferring 1 and 2 into another queue, and then the when the queue size is 1, when the queue size is 1, we'll just pop it. We'll just pop it out. We'll just be popping this out. So yeah, this is basically it. Yeah, since we have used 2 queues to implement a stack, this is actually costly. So this is one way in which you make pop costly. Okay. So there is other way in which you can make push costly. Okay. You can try that. No, you can try this out. Okay. You can always Google if you didn't get the answer, or you can refer to our Discord. You can ask the doubt in our Discord server. So let's see how do we implement in code. How will we be implementing stack using queue in code? Okay. Yeah, this is okay for the first years out there who don't know what stack what class is. Class is just a combination. Okay, in technical terms, it's called encapsulation, but I'll just say combination for now. Combination of data and the member functions. The member functions that work on this particular data. Okay, and the member functions that work on this particular data. Okay, so what it does is it just gives you an object oriented field. Okay, object oriented field. Fine. Okay, so As you can see, we have a queue and we have current size. So this will be our data, right? This will be our data. And then the functions that are below this, we have our pop function and we have our size function. We'll use this data, manipulate this data in the necessary way to get some answer. Okay, to make advantage out of it. So in this way, we can use class. Okay. It is similar to structure. Yes, it is a very similar to structure, but there is one major difference which is that the member functions are not public in structure anyway. Okay, sorry. The data members are not private in structure, but in class they are private. Okay. And, we'll just see how we have implemented this. Okay, as told, I'm trying to make pop costly. So push is just this, right? I'm just pushing it into the queue. Okay, and then I'm incrementing this. I'm incrementing the size. Okay, but when I say pop is costly, if the queue dot empty is if at all the queue is empty, there is no pushing and popping whatsoever. So I'll just be returning null. Okay, it's a void function, so I can use this return. So it's just returning null. Okay, if at all, until the size of the queue is 1, okay, until the size of queue is 1, I'll be popping. Okay, whenever it is 1, the element that is there inside the queue, the element inside the queue will be the last inserted element, right? The last inserted element. Okay, so then when we reach the last inserted element, we'll just be popping this. Okay. So what does this is? This pops the last element. Pops the last element. And finally, we'll just swap the contents of Q1 and Q2. That means we are actually restoring the temporary queue. The temporary queue right here is Q2, right? Because we have pushed all the elements into Q2. We'll just restore the original queue. Original queue. Right? So this is basically it. Yeah, so initially we have start push one. Push is simple. Push. It's just okay. Let me try to trace it once. So now the queue will have one as its element. Okay. Now since we have also inserted two, we'll have three, and finally we'll be having four. Right. Now the current size would be four. The current size would be four. Right. Whenever I try to pop what should be happening is that I'll be having Q, which is my original Q, and then I'll be having TQ, which will be my temporary Q, right? Which will be my temporary Q. Temporary Q. So in the original Q, I'll be given 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I'll do is I'll push 1, 2, 3 into this temporary Q and pop them out of this original. That is just this function over here. Do not push, right? And then I'll be popping this from the original queue. So this is the existing queue after first step, and then I'll be popping this for, but I won't be storing this in my temporary queue, right? I'll just be popping this out, and then I'll be restoring. So these elements again, since now 4 has been popped, I'll again be restoring. So the temporary queue becomes empty again, right? So this is the kind of answer that we'll get if we perform pop on a stack, right? We have used queues to implement it, and the same goes here. So this will be the code. If you see, the current size should be 4, and once I've used the pop operation 2 times, the current size should be 2. The current size should be 2. Let's see if that will be our output. Yeah, the current size is initially 4 because I've pushed 4 elements, and then after popping, the current size is 2. Okay, fine. So I think it's gone again. Yeah, it's gone. So the next question will be our last question for the session. That question is, you should be, you'll be given a queue. You'll be given a queue. You have to sort this queue with the help of stack. Okay. Actually, you should with the help of stack. With the help of stack, you should actually be returning yes if it can be sorted, or else you should be printing no. Right? If the data is as such that it can be this queue can be sorted with the help of a stack, you should be returning yes. Okay, or else you should be returning no. Okay. So let's just take an example. Okay, let's say that the elements inside the queue will be given this in the form of array first, will not be given. Okay, so the elements inside the queue are 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now we have to say that if this can be sorted into another queue. Okay, and if we can what is it? If you can push this into another queue and make this sorted with the help of a stack. In this case, we do not need any stack, the help of stack. Yes, it can be done, because if you just pop the elements in the front and then push it into the other queue, this queue is sorted, right? As you can see, 1, 2, 3. And, what if I have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay, so what will happen? The first element is 5, second is 1, third is 2. Yeah, so this is my empty queue right here. Right. So initially the expected element is 1, right? So the expected element is 1 because this is the smallest. The expected element is 1, but we have 5 right here. So what should we be doing? We should store 5 in our temporary memory. Okay, whenever we need temporary memory, we know stack is always an option. So, and then we encountered 1. Okay, 1 is the expected right now. So I'll just push it into our new queue. Okay, and now 2 is expected. Also, the current element is also 2. Right, the current element is also 2. I'll just push it. 3 is expected, the current element is 3. I'll push it. 4 is expected, the current element is 4. I'll push it. Okay, end of array. End of array. Right. Now when I come out, the expected is still going to be 4, because I won't be incrementing the expected like assets. So the expected is still going to be 4, and the element on the top of the stack is going to be 5. So in this case, the given queue can be sorted into another queue, okay, with the help of stack. Okay, so this is just the problem description. We did not start to solve it yet. We'll see. So the first question is, we are using stack, right? Why do we need stack? Okay, sorry. Or what happens in the stack? What happens by using the stack? By using stack. Okay. So I'll just take a simple example. We have a sorted array, 1, 2, and 3. We have a sorted array, and we need to push it into the stack. So I'll be pushing 1 first, 2 second, and 3 first. And then we're taking input out of the stack. Sorry, we're taking output. Okay, taking input from the stack. Okay, so the element that is pushed first is 2, 3, and then 2, and then 1. What happened? Ascending is turned to descending. Right, so the ascending has been turned to descending. Okay, if you have a descending order right here, it will be turned to ascending. In the problem statement that you are given, we need to sort it ascendingly. We need to sort it. Hello, any trouble? Okay, so we need to sort it ascendingly. So the elements that should be pushed into the stack should be descending. Okay, so this will be our ground condition. Only if the elements that will be pushed into our stack are descending, we can say that the queue can be sorted into another queue using stack, right? If the elements are ascending, okay, if the elements that will be pushed into the stack are in ascending order. Okay, then and when they come out, they'll be in descending order. Okay, when they come out, they'll be converted into descending. But we do not need descending order. We need the ascending order. So this is not possible. For example, let's say we have 5, 2, 1, 3, 4. Okay, we have 5, 2, 1, 3, 4. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. If the size of array is n, every element from 1 to n will be in the array exactly once. Okay, so this is given in the problem statement. I forgot. Every element from 1 to n will be there in the array exactly once. Fine. Okay. So in this case, we have 5, 2, 1, 3, 4, right? We have 5, 2, 1, 3, 4. So what is here? What is happening here is initially we need 1. We are expecting 1 to be inside the queue, but we have found 5. So we need to store that in our temporary memory. We're expecting 1. We found 2. We'll be storing it in our temporary memory. We're expecting 1. We found 1. We'll be pushing it into this queue, into this queue right here. Okay. And then we're expecting 2. But the 2 is there on the top of the stack. So we'll be pushing, we'll be popping this element out of the stack. Okay. And then we'll be pushing it inside the queue. Right. Now we're expecting 3. We have 3. We're expecting 4. We have 4. Okay. At the end of the array, we see that we have 5 right here. Right. Only the element 5 is there afterwards. Okay. So in this case, we can obviously pop 5 out and then append it into our existing queue to make it sorted. Okay. So this is acceptable case. But if it is this way, if it is in this way, 2, 5, 1, 3, 4. Okay. So if it is in this way, the first element that will be entering the stack will be 2. Second element will be 5. Since we are expecting 1 and then we got 1 in our third location, 1 will be entered into our queue. Okay. But now when I try to pop, I'm losing 5. Okay. But 5 did not fell into its, it's not 5's time to enter the queue, right? But we're losing 5. In this case, we cannot sort the array into another queue. We cannot sort this queue into another queue using stack, because since the elements that are not sorted, if you see 2, 5 are not in their appropriate positions, they're in ascending order. Okay, so when they come out, they will be in descending order. Okay, if they are in descending order, the queue cannot be sorted. So that is the basic intuition and the ground condition. Let's see how we can implement this. Yeah, so this is our code. As you can see, we have a queue right here. Okay, and then I've pushed 5, I've pushed 1, I've pushed 2, I've pushed 3, and then finally I've pushed 4. And is the current size of the queue. Okay, now I'm passing it to the check sorted function. Okay, this is the check sorted function. It will return true. It will return a true or false value. True if if the query asked is satisfied. False if the question cannot be done. Okay. Using stack. Okay. So we have a stack right here. Int expected the first element. As I've told you, every element from 1 to n. I forgot to tell you in the beginning of the question, but every element between 1 to n is there in the input and is unique. Okay, so every element is from 1 to n is there in the input, and there are no repetitions. Right? So our expected element will obviously be 1. We're checking if the queue is empty. So if at all the queue is not empty, we'll just pop out the front element. Okay, we'll just pop out the front element, store it in the front, store it in this variable. Okay, if the front is expected, okay, then this can be pushed into our answer queue. If we don't actually need an answer queue, we just need to say if the answer queue, we just need to say if it is possible to sort or not. This will be pushed into our answer queue, and then our expected will be incremented to 2. Now our expected is 2. Right? Let's say if it is so if we have encountered 5, as in here. Okay, so I've encountered 5. Okay, so 5 needs to be stored because it did not reach its position yet. Okay, 5 needs to be stored. So what will I do? If at all the stack is empty, I'll push it. Okay. When will I not push it? When will I know? When will I know that the answer is not plausible? The answer is not possible. The answer is not possible only if the non-sorted elements are in ascending order. Okay, if they're in ascending order, when they are pushed into the stack and when they're popped out, they'll come in descending order. So in this case, we can return false, right? So if at all the stack dot top, the current the current element should always be greater than the front element for the process to continue. But even when it is less, which means it cannot be equal to, because everything is distinct. Okay. So in this case, we can just return false, right? Or else we'll push it into the stack. Right. And finally, we'll just empty the stack. We'll empty the stack. Actually, the thing is, will not empty the stack. What will we be doing is, if at all the top element is same as expected element. Okay. The top element is same as expected element. Then the top element should be pushed into our answer queue. It should be pushed into our answer queue, right? It should be, so that is what we have been doing. We did not explicitly push into the answer queue as we do not need it. We've popped the element as we no longer needed it, and then we've incremented the expected. Okay, so this process continues until the queue goes empty. Whenever the queue is empty, we'll check if the expected -1. We'll check the expected -1. In our test case, in this case, okay. In this case, the expected will be 4. Expected will be 4 when the queue is empty. When Q1 is empty. Right? Expected will be 4. Okay. Is it n-1? Is expected n-1? Yes. Right. Expected is n-1. This is 5 and this 5. And the expected element is 4. Sorry, one second. Okay, so we're incrementing the expected. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So in this case, the expected will be 6. Right. We've also pushed the element inside. We've also pushed the element which is present at the top part of the stack. Right. Initially, the stack has 5. So after the end of queue, we'll also be pushing 5 into the stack. 5 into the stack. 5 into our answer queue. 5 is also pushed into our answer queue. Since 5 is also pushed into our answer queue, our expected gets incremented to 6. Right? Our expected gets incremented to 6, which is obviously, as you can see, which is n-1, which is, expected -1. Expected is 6. 6 minus 1, which will be 5. Okay. So in this case, and the stack should be empty. Okay. The stack should be empty. In this case, we'll return true. Okay. Or else we'll be returning false. I hope you have understood all the questions discussed today. And also, again, I'm just saying all of these questions have been taken from Geeks for Geeks. If you want, you can go to this website and see more about stacks and queues. Okay. So I think we've come to the end of the session. If you have any doubts or if you want me to explain any concept again, I'll be happy to. Or else we can conclude the session. No, it's okay. Fine. As you can see, I have to cover all of the questions, so I did rush a little bit. Whenever you get the recorded session, you can also view it again. Just to let you know, this session I've concentrated mostly on the intuition part and less on the coding part. It's just how can we approach and how can we use stacks and queues to solve questions. Okay, so that is the basic motto of this session. Okay, since you have no doubts, shall we wind up the session? Okay then. Srish
Yeah.
and Archana, you want to add something? Okay, Shweta, do you want to add something?
No, nothing. We can wind up the session if we don't have any doubts.
Yeah. Okay.